would be very difficult for me. So now, looking at Saul, he's taking it a step further. He sees that Jesus is no longer roaming the earth, but his fans or his fan club is still active. So he needs to do something about it. And he's going on believing that what he is doing is right. But then, spoiler alert, for those of us that do know, Saul becomes Paul, right? He just changes that first letter in his name. And then he goes on to write about half of the New Testament.
Yeah.
Like, you guys ever get in those arguments at home with your family where, like, now you're losing the argument and you think you're kind of wrong, but you got to win it now because now you're invested, so you guys go to the Bible and you start pulling verses out? There's a chance that the same person's words that you're pulling from are the same man that would have persecuted you for saying the name Jesus. And there's a crazy switch up there. It's like, what happened? First, you don't believe in Jesus, and then you do. Like, the contrast is crazy. You have Saul. He believes in God, but doesn't believe Jesus to be God, and he's attacking Christians. Then you have Paul, who believes in God, believes Jesus to be God, and then he writes about half the New Testament. The change-up is crazy, but what happens? As we sit on that, let's go back to our previous question. Why do you believe what you believe? Most of us were raised in some system of belief. Your family told you about God. You did your good night prayers. You came into church, maybe fell asleep halfway through in the back. I mean, I know I fell asleep if I didn't have my Game Boy, but I can't be the only one, right? And then maybe you never stepped foot in a church. Maybe this is your first time ever clicking to watch a church online. Whatever the case is, whatever your background, everyone has some idea of who God is. Everyone has some idea, whether it's self-formed or whether it's through things that they've learned over the years, they have some idea of who God is. Some people believe that coming to church keeps you out of hell, while others believe that you don't go to hell just as long as you don't do bad things. There's some people who believe that God is active and alive in your life, and then there's other people who believe that God created everything and now has taken a back seat and is watching events unfold. And then there's other people that don't believe that God exists. But why do you believe what you believe? Many people have a belief system that's taught to them by a parent, grandparent, by a role model, and they don't ever question anything that they take in. To every Christian that claims that they are following Jesus wholeheartedly, I want to ask you a question. When was the last time that your thoughts or opinions were checked by the Bible? Or even to take it a step further, when was the last time that you read your Bible? And the question is not meant to be an insulting one. It's meant to be an eye-opening one. Because, like I said earlier, a lot of people say a lot of things. And the challenge say a lot of things, and then there's people like me who just take it. Who take it and don't question it. And then the problem becomes that I regurgitate this information that I heard you say that you know, but I don't actually know this information because I never did any homework, I never studied it, I never read into it. And then I'll say it one day to the person that has the nerve to argue it back, right? And they start poking holes in the logic, and they start poking holes in the way of thinking. And then I'm stumped, I'm stuck, because I have no rebuttal. I have no way to make sense of it, and that becomes deflating to my faith. And then the challenge to take it a step further is that sometimes I don't even need somebody to argue with me. I'll do it by myself. I'll sit there and go back and forth in my head like a game of ping pong, and I'll still sit there poking holes, and I'm like, man, does God even exist? Is this even real? Like, no matter what someone or something has told you, or what you've told yourself, that your faith in Jesus doesn't budge. And that should be your starting point. The challenge is that many of us, we hear these word of mouth things that we don't research, and then those become our foundations, and those are a shaky foundation to stand on. So I've already told you guys, I'm skeptical when it comes to my faith. And I've heard more than my fair share of things, and I've thought more than my fair share of things, right? Because you hear the people that make the argument of, oh, well, I believe in God, but I just don't believe in the Bible. And then you kind of sit there and you're like, well, maybe, this guy's not really living wrong, so maybe that's how you do it. And then there's the other argument of, well, it's just a bunch of old dudes that wrote the Bible. It's not like God was in heaven, stitched the Bible together, and then gave it to us. And like these thoughts, they were damaging to my faith, because then I'm just stuck. What do I do? And to kind of break it up, I'm going to tell you a story that I've told from up here before, but I just feel like it's so fitting